Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications and GeoCollaborate. This is a tropical update for the All Hazards Consortium Sensitive Information Sharing Environment. It's just past 12 o'clock here on the East Coast on November 5th, Tuesday, and Rafael is showing signs of strengthening. Tropical Storm Rafael has currently 60-mile-per-hour winds. As far as the latest National Hurricane Center update is concerned. That was 2 hours ago, but I do have the latest satellite imagery here, and it's just emerging past Jamaica here. Never made landfall in Jamaica, remained slightly offshore, but you can see it's getting a little bit better banding feature and a little bit more wrapped up here as far as the center of the storm goes, and some enhanced thunderstorm activity. I do have the sea surface temperature data on just to show you that it is very warm there in the Caribbean. That's part of the fuel that is needed to power Tropical Storm Rafael. Tropical cyclones need temperatures, sea surface temperatures, about 79 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's well into the 80s in the Caribbean, anywhere from 84 to 86 degrees, at least some of the drifters and buoys that I've checked there most recently. But let me take you a little bit closer. First, we'll go full screen, and you can see what this looks like. There indeed is the center of the storm here, and this is Jamaica. Tropical storm warnings in effect for Jamaica right now, and hurricane warnings for the Caymans, Grand Caymans. Here's Grand Cayman right here. I am going to show you radar data in just a moment from Grand Cayman as we monitor Rafael approaching the island. We'll be monitoring the radar data all afternoon and into the evening and tonight as well, just to see how it looks. But you can see the banding features, particularly on the north and east and southeast sides of Rafael. That is what I mentioned yesterday and the day before. If the storm passes to the west of Jamaica, it's going to have a lot of rain coming in over the island. And you can see there's 1, 2, 3 bands of rain that will be passing through the island of Jamaica as the system pulls off to the west and the northwest. So we do have warm sea surface temperatures. I want to show you the mesoscale imagery. That is the 1 meter or 1 minute satellite imagery. It updates every minute from the GOES East NOAA satellite. That means we can see a picture every single minute, which is pretty phenomenal. And here we go. So this is what Rafael looks like right now. This was just updated as of a couple minutes ago. And you can see some thunderstorm. Look at that thunderstorm there that's popping up through the cirrus clouds. That's a severe thunderstorm. Here's some right here. And there are also some boiling up here. So I'm guessing that the center is somewhere around in here. And it is moving off to the northwest right now. Let's take a look at the current statistics as far as the 10 a.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center is concerned. Located at 17.8 north, 78.6 west, 65 miles southwest of Montego Bay in Jamaica. Now, where's Montego Bay? Right about here is Montego Bay on the northwest coast of Jamaica. 200 miles east-southeast of Grand Cayman. Max winds 60 miles per hour, and the movement to the northwest at 13 miles per hour. Pressure at 994 millibars. We do have, as far as the 10 a.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center is concerned, updated watches and warnings. Hurricane warnings for the Caymans, and also tropical storm warning for Jamaica, lower middle Florida Keys as well, from Key West to the west of Channel 5 Bridge, including the Dry Tortugas. That's a tropical storm warning. There's a tropical storm watch for some Cuban provinces, and also the hurricane warning is for the Kayman Islands and western Cuban provinces. So that's what the latest watches and warnings are concerned, and it does look like the forecast for Rafael is for it to intensify as these thunderstorms build up and sort of build up the central core of the system. Very interestingly enough, too, earlier when the hurricane hunters were flying through the storm, the radius of maximum wind for tropical storm force winds actually getting smaller. Not spreading out, it's getting smaller, which is an indication that the storm could be intensifying around its center here. And then once it establishes that maturity, then the wind field will start to spread out as the storm gets into a little higher latitudes and it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll be looking at forecast radius of maximum winds in future updates. But just to let you know, we're watching that because it matters. It matters how wide the radius of maximum winds are. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take you over to GeoCollaborate full screen here because I want to show you the latest sandwich product I loaded into GeoCollaborate here, and a little bit wider too. Sandwich product means it's kind of a different layers of satellite imagery. We can see the visible bubbles here. We've color-coded the convection, so anywhere you see orange is thunderstorm activity and convection. So this is very heavy thunderstorm activity. You can see the center maybe right about in here as these storms rotate around this center. And there's some more thunderstorms too. And anywhere you see these oranges, think about these orange colors. Think about heavy, intense rainfall happening. And I'll show you some of the NASA iMerge data as well, because we can estimate rain falling out of the system. It's a little bit behind this time, but it's still a good opportunity to put an additional research satellite to work to help us understand how this storm is maturing. Here are the Kayman Islands. This is Georgetown right here. There's a hurricane warning in effect. I can move this down just a little bit. Also, hurricane warning in effect for the small Kayman Island there to the east and the northeast. Now, here's a look at the Grand Cayman radar. This is a radar located right on Grand Cayman. Thanks so much to Brian McNulty at the University of Miami for putting this up and allowing us to grab it so we can talk about what's going on. And you can see that sort of burst of convection just to the west of Jamaica. That is that area of thunderstorm activity that I showed you in the satellite picture. And it looks like we are seeing more of a circulation and perhaps the formation of an eye. But you can see the range rings for the distance where the hurricane, the center of the, or tropical storm, rather, the center of the tropical storm is located. And the center is right at Grand Cayman. We'll be updating this radar throughout the afternoon and tonight into tomorrow as well. As long as Rafael shows up in this radar scan, we'll bring it to you. And so this storm, Rafael, is expected to move basically between Grand Cayman and Georgetown and Little Cayman to the east. So anybody on the eastern side of this storm will probably get a heavier dose of rain and thunderstorms. But if it threads this needle, both islands are really going to take it on the chin with very strong winds. So this is the sandwich product. I'm going to zoom out, and since it's a mesoscale sector, it's only a little tiny area. This is the area where the GOES East satellite is focusing on, so it can get 1-minute imagery. So it has to narrow its field of view. So that's why we have this here. Now, I'm going to turn that satellite image off because I want to make sure that we focus in on some of the other data that's available. So I turn that off here. You can see Jamaica. I'll turn on the forecast of the track and the cone from the National Hurricane Center. So this is located about where Rafael is right now. You can see the hurricane warnings in effect for the Caymans. Also in western Cuba, anywhere you see this red area, that's hurricane warning in effect. And let's take a look a little bit closer here as far as the intensity of the storm goes. And notice there are a lot of advisories now issued for the Florida Keys, including a tropical storm watch in effect for the Florida Keys. And so let me just make sure I got that right with the full watches warnings. So the tropical storm watch is in effect right there, but the warning is in effect for the lower and middle Florida Keys. So apologies for that. We do have a tropical storm warning from Channel 5 Bridge west to Key West, including the dry Tortugas. Tropical storm warning in effect there. Okay, back to GeoCollaborate full screen. Just wanted to make that clear. I'm going to zoom in here into Cuba because it looks like the forecast has Rafael at about 85 mile per hour winds. That's a Category 1 hurricane approaching the western tip of Cuba. And there is a chance, because we're already seeing some convection building up right now in the storm. That's this area right here that you can see these thunderstorms popping up. We'll be watching this very closely because this may be the start of a period of rapid intensification. And we'll be watching that very closely. You can see other thunderstorms. Looks like it's just becoming a little bit more mature now with its dynamics, and also the water temperatures are there to fuel it for sure. Okay, back to GeoCollaborate. And I want to show you the hurricane forecast for intensity. 90 mile per hour winds forecast for 7 o'clock p.m. tomorrow. So that's Wednesday at 7 p.m. as it emerges off of Cuba. Really not going to do anything. And one of the reasons is because if Rafael is starting to obtain a rapid intensification posture as it approaches the Kayman Islands, then it's going to be deepening, spinning up faster. And so while it's doing that, this little sliver of Cuba isn't going to do much to really knock it down. And so the forecast is for 90 mile an hour winds here. And then look what happens. Here's Florida. So we're going to have a radius of winds, tropical storm force winds, that are going to impact the Florida Keys. That's why we have a tropical storm warning in effect for those lower keys, including the dry Tortugas. Even out here, this red part is a hurricane warning. As you can see, it's within the cone, and we're going to have impacts well outside of the cone as usual. So at this point, this is almost like an inflection point here. We have a 90 mile per hour hurricane. It could be higher. We could be dealing with a Category 2 hurricane here because conditions are very favorable for Rafael to intensify in this area. So could be a 90 mile per hour hurricane, could be a little bit higher. And then out here, it takes a little turn because it's getting under the influence of the high pressure system well to the north and east. That is, it's a ridge of high pressure, kind of nudging it to the west a little bit. We're talking still a 90 mile per hour hurricane at this time, and that time was 7 o'clock p.m. on Thursday. We're talking Thursday here. And then on Friday, drag this down just a little bit, we have an 85 mile per hour hurricane as far as the National Hurricane Center's forecast is concerned. There's a lot of uncertainty in two things here: the intensity at this location and the actual location. Some of the models, European models and some other models, take it to the west out here into the center part of the Gulf of Mexico, while the GFS, the American model, take it up towards Louisiana this way. So this forecast, and I'll back out here just so you can see it a little bit more clearly, this forecast is kind of a compromise between the two major modeling systems and their ensembles. Ensembles just mean a whole bunch of member models. Think of them as 50 models on this team and 50 models on that team. They run and they come up with a whole bunch of solutions. So that's what an ensemble forecast is. And this one is basically a compromise between the two, but it also has a weakening of Rafael up in this part of the Gulf. We have plenty of time to watch this and monitor it because there are factors here that haven't come together yet that may weaken Rafael rather quickly in the northern Gulf of Mexico. That would be terrific if that happens. One of them is strong wind shear. Strong wind shear in the northern Gulf of Mexico, boy, that'll really tear Rafael apart. But what it won't do is evaporate all the moisture that the hurricane has. And we're going to see when Rafael gets in this area here, we're going to see a lot of moisture be pulled up off of the storm. Remember, a hurricane is like a heat engine. It needs those warm sea surface temperatures to operate, and then it pumps out moisture out of the top, and it pumps out dry air and all that stuff too. But moisture can come off of the storm and get caught up in this trough of low pressure. That's why I'm going to show you here, and I might as well do it here. I'm going to zoom in to the southeast and turn on what some of the threats are for upcoming rainfall potential. And that is from the Weather Prediction Center. And the Weather Prediction Center is in College Park, Maryland. And I'm going to turn on the 3-day excessive rainfall outlook. So here it is. We talked about this a lot when Helene was coming ashore and when Milton was coming ashore. These are impacts. So I'm getting off right now of the official hurricane forecast as far as Rafael goes, but I do want to start talking about impacts because this is over the next 3 days, not directly associated with Rafael, but we do have a lot of moisture that's being strung out here in this part of western Tennessee, western Mississippi, Arkansas, here into Kentucky, that there could be flooding in these areas because of heavy rain. You can see right now there are flood watches in effect throughout northwest Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, up into Illinois as well. But that's going to progress eastward over the next couple of days, where we'll have a flooding potential in this area. Also in the southeast, see this area in Georgia and South Carolina? There's a possibility that 3 to 5 inches or more of rain could fall in this area over the next 3 days. This is a 3-day excessive rainfall outlook from the Weather Prediction Center in College Park, Maryland. And you see this extends down into Florida and the west coast of Florida. So even though Rafael will be moving away from Florida in this forecast track, official forecast track, it will still be spinning and spinning off showers and thunderstorms that come across western Florida, the Gulf Coast, west coast of Florida. So there are chances that we could have localized flooding rains in this area too. Now, the good news is that since it's taking at least a forecast path in this direction, look how the angle is widening between Florida and where the storm is forecast to be. It means that the impacts from storm surge will be lower on the west coast of Florida and southwest Florida. Doesn't mean there won't be any, but it does mean that it will be lower. And as the storm gets closer, we'll start to see if there are any storm surge watches or warnings issued from the National Hurricane Center. And that really depends on the strength and the size of those winds, the radius of maximum winds. We'll be diving into that in future updates. But this is what it looks like. So we have a chance of some localized flooding rains over the next 3 days in western Florida, central Florida here in northern, and then the big kahuna here is perhaps some serious flooding in central Georgia. It does include Atlanta, not as high probabilities right now, but it does extend up into Columbia, South Carolina, and areas like that. So be prepared. Start to think about if your areas flood in this area after you get 2-3 inches of rain. Make sure you try to take precautions. Clean out anything that might be blocking the storm drains. Take things inside that you don't want to be washed away if there's flooding. And of course, there's a lot of advisories here along the Gulf Coast. These are small craft advisories where small boats should not be going out. The Gulf of Mexico is going to be rather turbulent. Okay, so let me get back here for a second because I just want to show you the sea surface temperature data here from NASA. And I'm going to show you also the radar and GPM data. This is global precipitation measurement data. So we'll look at that first. So this, remember I showed this yesterday. There's a series of satellites that are orbiting right now, and they're orbiting all over the place. Polar orbiting satellites that are gathering microwave data and using microwave sensors to gather rainfall rate data. Essentially, the global precipitation measurement mission. It produces NASA's, really, it's NASA's most comprehensive global rain and snowfall product to date. Okay, so this is really incredible. We don't have land-based radars. We can't have them over water. I'm going to show you the radar data in just a second out of Grand Cayman of Rafael approaching. But this is global. This is on a global basis. We can see how high it's raining. And I'm going to zoom in here a little bit because you can see the spiral bands of Rafael. Now, this data was all put together. This was from yesterday. So notice the storm is closer to Jamaica now. So tomorrow we'll see that radar data up in here. But this does give us an idea for what the rates of rain that are falling. And so here's the legend on here. And what I'm going to do is put my cursor. I'm going to put my cursor over this data, and you can see in the bottom, you can see the intensity changing. So right here, it's getting towards probably about 1.5 inches of rain per hour falling out of this. So it really gives us an idea for what kind of intense rainfalls might be happening out of Rafael as it develops. And also once it encounters topography, mountains, look at this. In Haiti and also in the Dominican Republic, there are mountains here. And when the flow hits those mountains, the rainfall intensity picks up. And that's why we can have some serious flooding and mudslides around these mountains. So this is pretty incredible data. I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to turn on the sea surface temperature anomalies. These are the anomalies, so where it's warmer or colder than average. And this is the data from yesterday. This is all put together in high resolution. You probably don't see this in many places, but we have it in high resolution. And this is the area I talked about yesterday when we were looking at Rafael moving across Cuba into this little cooler bit of water and in this area of cooler water. Now, it may not have a huge impact on the hurricane because this isn't like ice cold. This is only about, and I have the legend for that one here. The blue area you can see is probably about 2 degrees Celsius cooler than average. Doesn't mean it's below where it's going to impact a hurricane. This is the loop current where it's warmer than average, 2 to 3 degrees Celsius warmer than average. And then you can see the Gulf Stream going up here. But what we do have is the possibility that Rafael will encounter the wind shear up here in the northern Gulf of Mexico. That's probably a bigger factor in weakening the storm than these sea surface temperature anomalies. Because even though this is cooler than average, it's still going to be above 79 degrees. And so that is something that the hurricane needs. Now, it's very juicy down here in the Caribbean. That's certainly fuel for this to intensify. And that's what it looks like it is doing. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to go back to GeoCollaborate and show you some ocean observing systems. Now, wow, look at all this. There's a lot going on here. So I'm just going to take it very slowly here and just tell you what we have going on. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the NDBC buoys. That's the National Data Buoy Center from the National Weather Service. That cleared up a lot of this data. And the yellow that you see here, these tracks, these are from gliders. They're gliders out in the ocean that are going up and down and measuring the columns of the water for salinity, for temperature, all sorts of things. And you can see these are out in the Gulf of Mexico. And look, there's some here doing the loop current or doing loops in the Gulf Stream. So you can see that. But what I want to look at, and I'm going to turn those gliders off. So we'll get rid of those gliders. And this is all near real-time data here. The drifter buoys are real-time. The other ones left here are called Argo floats. These Argo floats are pretty cool. They, and I can click on this here. The last report was yesterday, or 2 days ago, November 3rd. The next report is going to be November 8th. So why so much time between these observations? Well, it's because these Argo floats go to the surface, they report the data, and then they go back down, and they go down to maybe 200 meters in depth, gathering data. Then they come back up to the surface. And when they come up to the surface is when they can transmit their data. So when we see all these Argo floats here, we can click on each one of them and see when the next report is coming, meaning that's where the data is going to be transmitted. So look at this. The last report was today, just a little while ago. Sea surface temperature, 80.6 degrees. 80.6 degrees from this one right here. So this is really cool. This is operated by Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute up in Massachusetts in Woods Hole, and they do a terrific job. These Argo floats are all over the place. I can zoom out and you can see all of these buoys. Look at this. This is mainly used for NOAA research, but we work in an area where we're trying to transition these research observations into operations. So we can use these for real-time communication, like what I'm doing right now with this weather update. The other thing I want to show you, and I'll turn off the Argo floats so we don't have to see which ones I'm talking about. Now we're down to the global drifters. Now here's a cool story. I'll make this real quick. See all these drifters? These are wave spectral drifters. And notice I can see the sea surface temperature, 81 degrees right here. But look at the significant wave height, wave period, dominant wave direct, all zero. Because these are not reporting, because it takes a lot of battery power to report the waves. And there were no storms in the area. However, these global drifters are operated by Scripps, Oceanographic Institute, and Scripps is going to turn the wave drifter data back on once Rafael gets closer, and especially when it emerges to the north of Cuba. So in future updates, we're going to have real-time wave observations from these wave drifters. We can see the sea surface temperature, see 82 degrees. This one here doesn't have wave measurements, but it does have sea surface temperature and atmospheric pressure. So this will be pretty cool to take a look at this data as the storm does get closer. And so that's it for the tropical update here. As far as impacts go, it's still a little bit early with Rafael still down in this area of Jamaica. We want to see what the intensity of the storm is prior to landfall and after it emerges back into the Gulf of Mexico from the northern coast of Cuba. And then if we get any more convergence, of course, we brief on the official National Hurricane Center forecast. We don't go into all these discussions of this model does this one does this. There are hundreds of models out there. And some choose to take the model that show the most ominous type of result. We use the official National Hurricane Center forecast. That's what we put into GeoCollaborate, and that's what we can base our briefings on. So and so that's the way it looks. Now, the last thing that I want to do is I want to go over some of the model data from the GFS. I'm not showing you 100 models. I'm just showing you this one, which is the operational model from the National Weather Service, the GFS. And so I'm going to take this. This is initialized at 12Z this morning. And you can see right down here is Rafael. Right here, it was just southeast of Jamaica. And the valid time here, this is the 6-hour forecast valid this afternoon. So about close to about now. So this is where the storm is forecast to be and where it is. So let's take this in time as it comes over Cuba and emerges right here into the Gulf of Mexico. And you can see this stream of moisture. You see this streaming off of the storm? And that's that concentration of potential heavy rain in Georgia and South Carolina. That is for Wednesday, tomorrow afternoon into Thursday morning. That's where you have the flooding potential and then into Thursday afternoon. So I'll continue to move this forward in time. You see that area of intense rainfall? Look at that, right over South Carolina, approaching North Carolina here. The good news is, according to this particular model, folks like Western North Carolina, Asheville, Bat Cave, all those places, it does not look like intense rainfall will be coming in your area. Now, you may get rainfall and you may get a couple of inches of rainfall, but it's not going to be what you had prior to Helene and then during Helene. I know rainfall forecasts probably make you a little bit nervous. And just believe me when I say this is not going to be anything comes close to the kind of flooding that was experienced with Hurricane Helene and the rain you had before that as well. So you can see this will be moving out, and the hurricane is taking a little bit of a left turn, but then this model has it weakening because of wind shear, and then does have it impacting southeast Louisiana. This is one model. This is not the official Hurricane Center forecast. They don't go out this far. But again, what else are we looking at as far as the tropics are concerned? That's why we go out here, and we're out here 132 hours, fantasy land. That's what I call it. You know that. You've heard me say that a lot. But the models do want to develop another hurricane in the Caribbean and keep it down there for a little while. So that's why we'll keep monitoring the tropics here through November, because the hurricane season doesn't end until the end of November. So that's it for us. I'm going to call it here. This is the end of this particular briefing for the All Hazards Consortium and the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment. Rafael does look like it's increasing in intensity. Right now, 60-mile-per-hour winds. The planes are going through there right now. NOAA has one, and the Air Force has a couple of them. So next update, maybe later this evening, or definitely tomorrow morning, or tomorrow around noontime, the same time. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications and GeoCollaborate. Appreciate your attention. Please take care of yourself, and also watch out for your neighbors. They do appreciate it.